36 people showed up to work at Riverside Press on the morning of April 10th. By noon, only 12 walked out alive. 24 people died that day. My best friend of 20 years was one of them. I should have been there too. I should have been standing at my press station on the west side of the building right next to Gary Nolan, right where the explosion hit hardest. But I was not. And the reason I am still breathing, the reason I get to tell you this story is because 2 days earlier, a 73-year-old blind man grabbed my arm on a street corner and said 7 words that changed everything. Do not go to work tomorrow. Trust me. His name was Henry Lawson. He was a Vietnam veteran who lost his sight in 1971 from chemical exposure during the war. He had been blind for over 52 years, but I swear to you that man saw things the rest of us could not. He lived alone in a small apartment above a barber shop on Maple Street in Milwaukee. Every morning for 2 years, I helped him cross that street on my way to work. Every single morning, rain, snow, summer heat, it did not matter. I would park my truck in the same spot, walk the same route, and there he would be standing at the curb with his white cane waiting. I never thought much about it. It was just something I did 5 minutes out of my day to help an old man get where he needed to go. We talked about baseball, about the weather, about nothing important. I knew he had been a fire marshal for Harbor County for 33 years before he retired. I knew his wife Martha had passed away 8 years ago. I knew he listened to every Brewers game on the radio and still kept score in his head. But I did not know he had some kind of gift. I did not know he could sense things that had not happened yet. And I definitely did not know that helping him cross that street every morning was going to save my life. My name does not matter. What matters is that I am 49 years old and I have worked at Riverside Press for 24 years. I ran the same press, ate lunch at the same table, clocked in and clocked out at the same time every single day. I had a good life, a stable life. Married to my wife Linda for 24 years. She is a dental hygienist with a laugh that can fill a room and a way of knowing when something is wrong before I even open my mouth. We raised a daughter together, Emily. She is 20 now, a sophomore at Midwest State University, and she calls every Sunday night without fail. She is the light of my life, the reason I get up in the morning, the reason I work hard and save money and dream about the future. And then there was Gary Nolan, my best friend. We started at Riverside Press the same week back when we were both young and did not know what we were doing. 20 years of eating lunch together. 20 years of him bringing donuts every Friday because he said it made the week worth finishing. He had 3 kids and a wife named Laura who made the best pulled pork you have ever tasted. Gary was 54 years old. He had a laugh so loud you could hear it from across the press floor. And on April 10th, he was standing exactly where I should have been standing when the gas main ruptured and turned our building into a grave. I think about that every day. I think about how close I came to dying. I think about how a blind man I barely knew somehow sensed that something terrible was coming and cared enough to warn me. I think about why he chose me and not someone else. Why he did not warn Gary or any of the others. And the answer he gave me still keeps me awake some nights. You were the only one who stopped. He told me, 2 years every morning you stopped. Everyone else looked at the blind man and kept walking. You saw a person. That is it. That is why I am alive. Because I took 5 minutes out of my day to do something decent. Because I did not walk past a man who needed help. I am not telling you this story to make myself look good. I am telling you because you need to understand that the smallest things you do can come back to you in ways you never expect. A stranger became the reason I am still here. An old man with no eyes saw something coming that none of us could see. And because I listened to him, because something in his voice made me trust him, when every rational thought in my head was telling me he was crazy, I got to hug my daughter again. I got to grow old with my wife. I got to be here right now telling you what happened. This is the story of Henry Lawson and the warning that saved my life. This is the story of the friends I lost and the guilt I still carry. This is the story of why I will never walk past anyone who needs help again, as long as I live. Let me take you back to before everything changed, before the warning. Before the explosion, before I learned what it feels like to survive something that should have killed you. For 24 years, my life ran on a schedule. Wake up at 5:45, shower, shave, get dressed, kiss Linda goodbye while she is still half asleep. Grab a cup of coffee from the pot she sets up the night before because she knows I cannot function without it. Drive the same route to Milwaukee. Park on Maple Street 3 blocks from Riverside Press and walk the rest of the way. Clock in at 7 sharp, run my press until lunch. Eat with Gary, run my press until 4 go, clock out, drive home, do it all again the next day. Some people would call that boring. Maybe it was. But it was mine. It was steady. And after you have been doing something for over 2 decades, it stops feeling like a routine and starts feeling like breathing. You do not think about it. You just do it. The first time I met Henry Lawson was on a Tuesday morning in March, exactly 2 years before the explosion. I remember because I was running late. We had a big order due for a client in Riverton, and my supervisor, Frank Dalton, had been riding everyone hard all week. I was walking fast, head down, thinking about everything I had to get done. I almost did not see him. He was standing at the corner of Maple Street and Harbor Avenue, right at the edge of the curb, tall, thin, with silver hair cut short, and a face full of deep lines that told you he had lived through some things. He had a white cane in his right hand, and he was tapping it against the concrete head tilted to the side like he was listening for something. The crosswalk signal had changed twice, but he had not moved. Cars were flying past. People were walking around him like he was a piece of furniture. I stopped. I do not know why. Something about the way he was standing there, patient but stuck, made me pause. "You need a hand crossing." He turned toward my voice. His eyes were cloudy, unfocused, but there was something sharp behind them, something alert. "That would be appreciated. Name is Henry. I am headed that way anyway. I work just down at Riverside Press." He took my arm and we stepped off the curb together. His grip was firm, confident, like he had done this 1,000 times before. The big brick building with the loading dock. I know it well. Used to inspect that place back when I could still see. "You were an inspector. Fire marshal. 33 years with Harbor County. Retired in 96. Lost my sight in Vietnam, but they let me work another 27 years anyway. Said I had a nose for danger." We reached the other side of the street, and he let go of my arm. "Thank you kindly. What is your name?" I told him. "Well, I appreciate you stopping. Most people do not." I did not think much of it at the time. I said goodbye, walked to work, and forgot about him by lunch. But the next morning, there he was again. Same corner, same stance, same patient waiting. I stopped again, and the morning after that, and the one after that. 2 years. That is how long we did this. 5 minutes every morning, walking across Maple Street together, talking about whatever came to mind. I learned that his wife Martha had died of cancer 8 years ago, and that he still talked to her picture every night before bed. I learned that he had served 2 tours in Vietnam, and that the chemicals they sprayed over the jungle had stolen his sight 6 months before he was supposed to come home. I learned that he kept a garden on the roof of his building growing tomatoes and peppers by feel alone, and that his neighbor's kid came by once a week to tell him which ones were ripe. He learned about me too, about Linda, and how we met at a church picnic when we were both 23. He learned about Emily and how proud I was that she had gotten into Midwest State University on an academic scholarship, about Gary and our Friday donut tradition, and the time we got stuck in the freight elevator for 2 hours and laughed so hard we cried. I told Henry things I did not tell anyone else. There was something about walking with him, about the way he listened without interrupting, that made me open up. He could not see my face, so I did not have to pretend. I could just talk. Looking back, I think those 5 minutes every morning were the best part of my day. I just did not realize it at the time. I was too busy thinking about deadlines and orders and all the things that seemed so important, but do not matter at all anymore. I took my life for granted. I took Linda for granted. I took Gary for granted. I assumed tomorrow would always come, that nothing would ever change, that my little routine would carry me safely all the way to retirement. Henry knew better. He had seen enough in his 73 years to know that everything can change in a single moment, that the ground can open up beneath your feet without any warning at all, or almost without warning. Because 2 years after that first morning, Henry Lawson gave me the only warning I would ever get. And by some miracle, I listened. April 8th started like any other Tuesday. I woke up at 5:45, kissed Linda goodbye, grabbed my coffee and drove to Maple Street. The sky was gray and heavy, threatening rain that would not come until evening. I parked in my usual spot, stepped out of my truck and walked toward the corner where I knew Henry would be waiting. He was there. Same spot, same posture, white cane in his right hand, head tilted slightly like he was listening to something far away. But something was different that morning. I could feel it before I even reached him. There was a tension in his shoulders, a tightness in his jaw that I had never seen before. "Morning. Henry. Ready to cross." He did not answer right away. He just stood there, facing forward. His cloudy eyes pointed at nothing. I touched his arm, and he flinched like I had shocked him. "Henry, you okay?" "I am fine. Let us walk." We stepped off the curb together and made our way across Maple Street. I tried to make small talk, mentioned that Emily was coming home for spring break in a couple weeks. I asked if he had listened to the game last night. He gave short answers, 1 or 2 words. His mind was somewhere else entirely. When we reached the other side, he stopped. His grip on my arm tightened so hard it almost hurt. "I need you to listen to me carefully. What is wrong? Are you sick? Do you need me to call someone? I am not sick. Just listen." His voice had changed. It was not the warm, easy tone I had gotten used to over 2 years. It was low and serious, almost urgent. I felt a chill run down my spine despite the mild morning air. "Do not go to work tomorrow. Call in sick. Tell them there is a family emergency. Tell them whatever you need to tell them, but do not go into that building." I stared at him. His sightless eyes were fixed on my face with an intensity that made no sense. He could not see me, but it felt like he was looking straight through me. "What are you talking about? Is this some kind of joke? Do I sound like I am joking?" He did not. That was the problem. He sounded deadly serious. "Henry, I cannot just skip work. We have got a huge order to finish. Frank has been on everyone's case all week. I have not called in sick in over a year. I do not care about your order. I do not care about Frank. I care about you walking out of that building alive. What does that mean? Do you know something? Is there something wrong with the building?" Henry was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer but no less intense. 33 years. I spent walking through buildings looking for the things that could kill people. Gas leaks, faulty wiring, structural damage. I have seen places that looked perfectly safe burn to the ground in minutes. I have pulled bodies out of rubble that used to be someone's office. I know when something is wrong, and something is wrong with that building. I can feel it in my bones. I can smell it in the air. "Henry, you have not been inside Riverside Press in years. How could you possibly know I do not know how I know? I just do. Call it instinct. Call it a gift. Call it whatever you want. But I am asking you to trust me. Please do not go in tomorrow." I did not know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe him. There was something in his voice that was impossible to ignore. But the rational part of my brain was screaming that this was crazy. Henry was 73 years old. Maybe his mind was starting to slip. Maybe this was the beginning of dementia or some kind of paranoid delusion. I appreciate you looking out for me. I really do. But I think you are worrying about nothing. Henry released my arm. His face fell, and for a moment he looked older than I had ever seen him. I hope you are right. I hope I am just a crazy old man who has lost his mind. But if I am not, and you are standing in that building when something goes wrong, I will never forgive myself for not trying harder. I promised him I would be careful. I told him I would see him the next morning. Then I walked to work with his words echoing in my head, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling that had settled in my chest. That night I told Linda what happened. We were sitting at the kitchen table after dinner, and I could not keep it to myself any longer. He really said that do not go to work tomorrow. Word for word, he grabbed my arm and looked at me like he was seeing something I could not. It was strange, Linda. I have never seen him like that. She was quiet for a moment, turning her coffee cup in her hands. What if he knows something? How could he know anything? He is blind. He has not stepped foot in that building since before I started working there. You said he was a fire marshal for 33 years. Those men spend their whole lives learning to see danger. Maybe he does not need his eyes to know when something is wrong. That is not how it works. You cannot just sense that a building is going to have a problem. That is not real. Linda looked at me with those sharp brown eyes that always seem to cut right through my defenses. Maybe not. But you have known this man for 2 years. Has he ever lied to you? Has he ever asked you for anything I thought about it? The answer was no. In 2 years, Henry had never asked me for a single thing except help crossing the street. Just think about it, Linda said. That is all I am asking. Sleep on it. See how you feel in the morning. I went to bed that night with Henry's voice playing on repeat in my head. Trust me, do not go into that building. I stared at the ceiling for hours, watching shadows move across the walls, trying to convince myself that everything was fine. But somewhere deep down in a place I did not want to acknowledge, I was not so sure. I did not sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Henry's face. That urgent expression, those cloudy eyes that somehow seemed to see right through me. His voice kept repeating in my head like a song I could not shake. Do not go into that building. Trust me. By the time my alarm went off at 5:45, I had already been awake for hours. I got out of bed, showered, and got dressed on autopilot. Linda was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs. She handed me my coffee without a word, but I could feel her watching me. You look terrible. Did not sleep much. Are you going in? I took a long sip of coffee, avoiding her eyes. I have to. We have got that Kendrick order to finish. Frank will lose his mind if I do not show up. Linda did not argue. She just nodded and kissed me on the cheek. But as I headed for the door, she called after me. Just be careful, please. I promised her I would. Then I drove to Maple Street and parked in my usual spot. The morning was cool and overcast, the kind of gray April day that makes everything feel heavy. I got out of my truck and started walking toward the corner. Henry was already there, but he was not standing at the curb like he usually did. He was facing the direction I always came from. His head turned toward the sound of my footsteps like he had been waiting specifically for me. You are going in. Anyway, are you not? His voice stopped me cold. There was no greeting, no good morning, just that question hanging in the air between us. Henry, I told you I cannot just skip work because of a feeling. It is not a feeling. It is a warning. From who? From what? You cannot even see the building from here. Henry stepped toward me. His white cane tapped against the sidewalk as he moved, but his free hand reached out and found my arm with unsettling accuracy. Let me ask you something. Over the past 2 years, Henry had sometimes said things that felt strangely accurate, but I always brushed them off as coincidence. Your daughter Emily, she is at Midwest State University, right? Studying to be a nurse. My stomach dropped. I had talked about Emily plenty of times, but I could not remember ever telling him what she was studying, and I definitely never mentioned her name. How do you know that I know a lot of things I should not? Things I cannot explain. My wife Martha used to say I had the gift. I thought she was being superstitious. But after I lost my eyes, I started seeing things differently. Not with my eyes, with something else, something deeper. Henry, that does not make any sense. I know it does not. But I am telling you the truth. Last week I was sitting in my apartment and I got this heaviness in my chest. Every time I thought about that building of yours, it got worse. Felt like something pressing down on me. It felt like the same pressure in my chest that I used to get when there was a gas leak. Not a real smell, more like a memory in my bones. I could not sleep, could not eat. Something bad is coming, and it is coming soon. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he was just an old man with an overactive imagination. But the look on his face stopped me. There was no confusion there, no uncertainty, just absolute conviction. Your daughter needs her father. Your wife needs her husband. I am begging you. Stay home today. I stood there on that sidewalk, my heart pounding, my mind racing. Everything in me said this was crazy, that I was about to throw away my perfect attendance record because a blind man had a bad dream. Frank would be furious. Gary would wonder what happened to me. My coworkers would think I'd lost my mind. But then I thought about Emily. I thought about her smile when she came home for Christmas last year. I thought about how she had cried at the airport when she left, telling me she missed me already. I thought about all the things I still wanted to do with her, walking her down the aisle someday, meeting my grandchildren, watching her become the woman I knew she was going to be. And I thought about Linda. 24 years of marriage. 24 years of her believing in me, supporting me, loving me, even when I did not deserve it. What would happen to her if I did not come home? I pulled out my phone and dialed the number for Riverside Press. Frank answered on the second ring. Frank, it is me. I am not coming in today. What today? We have got the Kendrick order to finish. We need every press running. I know. I am sorry. Family emergency. I cannot be there. Cannot it wait until after the shift? We are talking about a major client here. No, it cannot wait. I have to go. I hung up before he could say anything else. My hands were shaking. I felt like I was going to be sick. But when I looked at Henry, his face had softened into something like relief. Thank you. I hope you are right about this. I just threw away 24 years of perfect attendance. Go home. Stay there all day. Do not leave for any reason. And tomorrow morning, when you understand why I told you this, come find me. I will be right here at this corner, and you can buy me a cup of coffee. I nodded, even though he could not see it. Then I walked back to my truck, got in, and drove home. Linda was surprised to see me. She was getting ready for work when I walked through the door, and she stopped in the middle of putting on her earrings. What happened? Why are you back? I called in, told Frank it was a family emergency. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she crossed the room and wrapped her arms around me. Good. I am glad. We spent the day together doing nothing important. We watched some television, made lunch, talked about Emily's upcoming visit, and what we should do when she got home. I tried to relax, but every few minutes I would catch myself staring at my phone, waiting for something to happen, waiting for proof that I had made the right choice, or that I had made a terrible mistake. Gary texted me 3 times that afternoon. Where are you? Frank is losing his mind over here. You okay? This is not like you. Call me when you can. Hope everything is all right, brother. I did not respond. I did not know what to say. How do you explain to your best friend that you skipped work because a blind man told you something bad was going to happen? That night, I lay in bed next to Linda, staring at the ceiling in the darkness. Part of me felt foolish. Part of me was sure I would go back to work the next day and everything would be fine, and I would spend the rest of my career explaining why I missed a critical deadline because of a gut feeling. But another part of me, a small, quiet part that I could not ignore, was grateful. Grateful that I had listened. Grateful that I was at home with my wife instead of standing at my press station. Grateful for Henry Lawson and his impossible warning. I did not know it then, but that feeling of gratitude was about to become the only thing keeping me alive. April 10th. I will remember that date for the rest of my life. The morning started quietly. I woke up late because there was nowhere I needed to be. Linda had already left for work, but she had left a note on the kitchen counter telling me she loved me and to take it easy. I made myself some eggs, poured a cup of coffee, and sat down in the living room to watch the morning news. The weather report said it was going to be a nice day. Clear skies, temperatures in the low 50s. Perfect spring weather. At 10:55, my phone rang. The number on the screen was not one I recognized. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. Hello. Is this the residence of the voice on the other end said my full name? Speaking. Who is this, sir? This is Sergeant Keller with Milwaukee Fire and Rescue. I am calling to confirm your employment. Are you currently employed at Riverside Press on Maple Street? My heart stopped. Yes. Why? What happened? There was a pause. A pause that felt like it lasted forever. Sir, there has been an incident at the facility. A gas main rupture caused an explosion at approximately 10:42 this morning. The building has partially collapsed. We are attempting to account for all employees who were scheduled to work today. Our records show you were on the roster. I could not breathe. The room started spinning around me. I grabbed the arm of the couch to steady myself. How bad is it, sir? I am not able to provide details over the phone. We are asking all employees who were not present at the time of the incident to report to the Milwaukee Fire Department headquarters on Bayview Avenue to help us verify personnel records. Are you able to come down? I am on my way. I do not remember hanging up. I do not remember grabbing my keys or getting in my truck. The next thing I knew, I was driving toward downtown Milwaukee, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. When I turned onto Maple Street, I had to pull over. I could not go any further. The building was gone. Not damaged, not partially collapsed. Gone. The west wall where the press floor used to be, where I had stood every single day for 24 years, was nothing but a pile of smoking rubble. Fire trucks surrounded the scene. Ambulances lined the street with their lights flashing. News vans were parked everywhere, reporters talking into cameras with the destruction visible behind them. I got out of my truck and walked toward the barricades on legs that did not feel like my own. A police officer stopped me before I could get too close. Sir, you cannot go past this point. This is an active rescue scene. I worked here. How many people were inside? The officer's face softened with something like sympathy. We are still assessing the situation. If you are an employee, they are gathering everyone at the community center on Oakwood Avenue. They will have more information there. I went to the community center. The scene inside was chaos. People crying, people screaming into phones, people sitting alone with blank expressions, staring at nothing. I found a woman from Human Resources who was trying to coordinate with the fire department. She looked like she had not stopped moving in hours. Do you have a list? Do you know who was inside? She shook her head. We are still putting it together. It is going to take time. The building, the west side especially, it is completely gone. I spent the next 3 hours at that community center waiting for news, watching names get added to lists, watching families arrive desperate for information about their loved ones, watching hope drain from faces as the reality of what happened became clear. 24. dead, 20 injured. The explosion had ripped through the west side of the building at 10:42 in the morning, right when the press floor was at full operation. The gas main that ran beneath the foundation had been leaking for weeks, maybe months. Nobody knew. Nobody smelled it. Nobody suspected a thing until the spark that ignited it all. I found out about Gary at 4:15 that afternoon. His name appeared on the confirmed deceased list written in black marker on a whiteboard that had become a memorial. Gary Nolan, age 54, press operator, west side floor. I stared at his name until the letters stopped making sense. Gary, my best friend. The man who brought donuts every Friday. The man who had texted me the day before asking if I was okay. He had been standing at his station right next to mine, right where I should have been. When the world exploded, a woman I did not recognize approached me. Her eyes were red from crying and her hands were trembling. You worked with him. With Gary. He was my best friend. 20 years. I am so sorry. She paused, looking at me with confusion. But you were not there. How were you not there? Someone said you never miss work. I did not know how to answer. What was I supposed to say? That a blind man I helped cross the street told me not to come in. That I skipped work because of a feeling I could not explain. I do not know, I said. I just was not there. That night, I sat in my truck outside Henry's apartment for almost an hour. I wanted to go up and talk to him, but I could not make myself move. I could not process what had happened. I could not understand how he had known. The next morning, April 11th, I walked to the corner of Maple Street and Harbor Avenue. The smell of smoke still hung in the air. The street was blocked off, but I could see the wreckage in the distance. Crews were still digging through the rubble. Henry was there, standing in his usual spot, waiting. I walked up to him, and for a long moment, neither of us said anything. Then he reached out and found my arm, just like he did every morning. You are alive. Because of you? No, because you listened. That is the difference. I have warned people before. They never listen. They think I am a crazy old man. But you listened. How did you know, Henry? How is that possible? He was quiet for a moment. His sightless eyes turned toward the sky. After I lost my sight, I started feeling things I could not explain. Heaviness, pressure like something pressing on my chest when danger was near. I cannot see the world anymore, but sometimes I think I see it clearer than I ever did. I felt that building dying for weeks. I smelled the gas even when there was no gas to smell. I knew something terrible was coming. I just did not know exactly when. You saved my life. You saved your own life. All I did was tell you the truth. You made the choice to believe me. I thought about Gary, about the 24 other people who did not get a warning about their families, their children, their plans for the future that would never happen now. Why me? Why did you warn me and not someone else? Henry squeezed my arm gently. Because you were the only one who stopped. 2 years every single morning you stopped to help me. Everyone else walked past. You were the only one who saw me as a person. I figured if anyone in that building deserved a chance, it was you. I broke down right there on that street corner. All the fear and grief and guilt I had been holding inside came pouring out. Henry did not say anything. He just stood there with his hand on my arm, letting me fall apart. When I finally pulled myself together, I asked him if I could buy him that cup of coffee. I would like that, he said. I would like that very much. The funeral was on a Saturday. Gray skies, light rain, the kind of weather that makes everything feel heavier than it already is. I stood in the back of the church because I could not bring myself to sit up front. Laura was in the first row with their 3 kids. Ethan was 18, trying so hard to be strong for his mother. Chloe was 15, crying quietly into a tissue. And little Caleb, only 13 years old, sat there staring straight ahead with a look on his face that no child should ever have, the look of someone trying to understand why his father is not coming home. The casket was closed. There was not enough left of Gary to show. I kept thinking about the last text he sent me. "Hope everything is all right, brother." Those were the last words he ever said to me, and I never responded. I was too busy sitting on my couch, safe and alive, while he was standing at his press station, waiting for a death he never saw coming. After the service, Laura found me in the parking lot. I was standing by my truck, unable to make myself leave. She walked up to me with red eyes and a face aged 10 years in a single week. "Thank you for coming, Laura. I am so sorry. I should have been there. I should have what? Died with him." She shook her head. "Do not do that to yourself. Gary loved you. He would not want you carrying that guilt. I do not understand why I am still here and he is not." She took my hand and held it tight. "Neither do I. But you are here, so do something with it. Live the kind of life that honors him. That is all any of us can do now." I tried. God knows I tried. But the weeks after the explosion were the hardest of my life. I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the rubble. I saw Gary's name on that whiteboard. I heard Sergeant Keller's voice on the phone telling me there had been an incident. I would wake up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat, heart pounding, convinced I could smell gas filling the room. I snapped at Linda over nothing. I ignored calls from Emily because I did not know how to talk to her without breaking down. I stopped eating, stopped caring. I felt like a ghost walking through a life I did not deserve to have. A survivor's guilt. That is what the therapist called it when Linda finally convinced me to see someone. The irrational belief that you should have died and did not. The crushing weight of being alive when others are not. She told me it was common among people who survive disasters, accidents, and tragedies. She told me it was not my fault, but knowing something is not your fault and believing it are two very different things. One night, about a month after the explosion, I drove to Henry's apartment. I brought a bottle of whiskey and knocked on his door. He answered like he had been expecting me. "Took you long enough," he said. "Come in." We sat at his kitchen table and he poured 2 glasses with the kind of precision that only comes from years of practice. I watched him move around his small apartment, navigating furniture and doorways without hesitation, and I wondered how a man who could not see had seen something so clearly. I keep asking myself why I told him. Why me and not Gary? Why did I get the warning when he did not? What makes me so special? Henry took a sip of his whiskey and set the glass down carefully. "You want the truth. Nothing makes you special. Nothing makes anyone special. We are all just people trying to get through the day. But sometimes the universe puts us in a position to help someone, and we have a choice. We can walk past, or we can stop. You stopped. Every morning for 2 years you stopped for a stranger who could not see. You did not have to. Nobody made you. You just did it because it was the right thing to do. That is why I am alive, because I helped you cross the street. That is why I cared enough to warn you. You showed me kindness when nobody else would. I could not save everyone in that building. I do not have that kind of power, but I could try to save you. And you gave me a chance by listening. I sat with that for a long time. The idea that a small act of kindness, something I never thought twice about, had created a connection strong enough to save my life. It did not make the guilt go away. Nothing could do that. But it gave me something to hold on to. Henry was right. I am not special. I am just a man who stopped when I could have kept walking. And because of that one choice repeated over and over for 2 years, I am still here. Riverside Press never reopened. The building was condemned and demolished 4 months after the explosion. 24 families received settlements. 20 injured workers went through surgeries and rehabilitation. The gas company paid millions in damages and issued public apologies that meant nothing to the people who lost everything. I found a new job at a smaller printing company across town. Different building, different co-workers. But every morning I still drive to Maple Street. I still park in my usual spot. And I still walk to the corner where Henry waits with his white cane and his cloudy eyes. We cross the street together. We talk about baseball, about Linda, about Emily, about nothing important and everything important. And every single time I thank God that I stopped that first morning 2 years ago. Emily came home for spring break 2 weeks after the explosion. She held me tighter than she ever had before, and she made me promise to never scare her like that again. I told her I would do my best. She met Henry that weekend. I introduced him as the man who saved my life. She hugged him and cried, and he just smiled and said he was glad to finally meet the daughter I talked about so much. I used to think my life was ordinary. Same routine, same job, same route. Nothing remarkable. But Henry taught me that ordinary is a gift. That waking up next to your wife is a gift. That hearing your daughter's voice on the phone is a gift. That being alive is a gift that can be taken away in an instant without any warning at all. Except I got a warning and I listened. So here is what I want you to take from this story. Stop for people. Help strangers. Show kindness even when it is inconvenient. Even when you are running late. Even when nobody is watching you, never know what connection you are building. You never know whose life you might touch. And you never know when that kindness will come back to save you. I helped a blind man cross the street because it was a decent thing to do. And because of that, I got to walk my daughter down the aisle last summer. I got to hold my wife's hand on our 25th anniversary. I got to be here right now telling you this story. Do not walk past, stop, help, connect. You never know who is watching out for you until you need them most. If this story touched your heart, I want you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below and tell me about a time when a small act of kindness changed your life. I read every single comment, and your stories inspire me more than you know. And if you are not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. We are building a community here of people who believe that kindness matters, that connection matters, and that ordinary people can do extraordinary things for each other. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I will see you in the next